Hi, everybody. Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of May 5th through 11th, and we've got a pretty light week again. Just a few things I want to talk about, so we might not even go very long this week. Mercury, mainly a Mercury journey this week. It's going to sextile Jupiter today, Monday, and then Tuesday, conjunct Chiron. So they're going to work together triggering the Jupiter Chiron sextile, and then Venus is sextile Pluto the same day, Tuesday, and then next weekend on Saturday, Mercury's going to change signs and go into Taurus. It's actually moving really fast now. So just a little business first. The Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog that I do on YouTube every week. If you like what you see, and you have a YouTube account, I'd really like you to become a follower. And don't forget, when you're a follower, you have to turn your notifications on or you won't know when the blog is posted. And remember, the blog was a podcast a long time before his YouTube channel, so it's still available on podcasts. You just got to look up Astrological Winds channel, do a little search on your podcast app, and you should be able to find it there. And obviously you don't get the video, but you get to hear it. And a lot of times, I know we're in our busy lives, driving around, working out at the gym, walking the dog. It's something you can do while you're doing that to keep you company. Also, it has an Instagram page, Astrological Winds channel. So I post the link in that every week too. So if you want to see it come up in your newsreel, that's a way you can get it that way. And then it always is on my website too, www.astrologicalwinds.com. And there's a tab on the top, says blogs, and it has several months of the blogs backlogged on there, and the current one will be right up front. If you need to go back to last week's or last month's or even the yearly one and recheck them, they're there for you. Check the calendar tab out too. And also, that's the place where all my professional services are listed on my website. I've been doing chart readings for over 20 years. I'm professionally trained. Love to do your chart or someone else. So check that out. The menu is there. And yeah, and then like what I asked for the blog, the service to the blog, in case you're new to it, is if you can pass the link along to somebody else. That's how you probably got the link. I really appreciate it. That's how I like to get the blog to grow. I feel like you get the more interested people who really want to check it out rather than just some kind of superficial little thing. Oh, I caught this, and like they move on, never to be seen again. So I love when people really get into things more deeply because we all learn so much more then. So if you can pass that link along to, as the pay it forward for me doing the blog, I'd appreciate it. I'm using some new microphones this week. I know one still have some people complaining about sound quality. It sounds pretty good on my end, guys. And so, I want to, the mics I was using, I thought sounded pretty good. But, I'm using some new ones this week that another listener sent in to me. So, let me know, if you guys think it's any worse, let me know and I'll go back to the other mics. Anyway, one of the things I just want to mention before we get into this week is once again, just want to show you guys some examples of the timing of things in the world based on what's going on. Like I said, one of the biggest, probably the biggest thing that happened this year is Neptune going into Aries, right? And it just went into Aries a few weeks back, right? About the 30th. It's not very long ago, actually, like March 30th, about 4 weeks or so ago. So big shift going on there. And Neptune is the ruler of spirituality and religion and things like that, right? And the Pope passed away right after Neptune went into Aries. So the end of an era of Neptune in Pisces, and a sign that it's has most affinity with, the most spiritual kind of sign, very much like Neptune, very nebulous, abstract spirituality, merging kind of energy, the two of them that share together. And the leader of of the most influential group of people of the last 2,000 years in the age of Pisces passes away just as the planet of spirituality goes into a new sign. So that's another big indicator of change this year that I've been saying for a couple years now how much this year is going to be a big change because of some of these things. Neptune going into Aries, case in point. So, and interesting that the trigger of his death was when the Mars Pluto opposition was going on. It wasn't just Neptune working in a vacuum, obviously. That's but because that's a really big aspect. So many things can happen, but then you get an inner planet Mars involved with Pluto, and you get a couple more planets involved, and all of a sudden you have, death is one of the ways you could, put on Mars Pluto energy. So then all of a sudden it's the death of the leader of one of the largest religions in the world. So very, very interesting. Once again, showing people how astrology work, and you have to have such a broad mind with that, guys. Remember that. You guys that don't know astrology, remember, don't get caught up on my terms. First of all, you want to listen to the energy, but remember that energy, it's a form, and you can call it fate or whatever you want to do, but we're all making choices within that form, and we're creating the manifestations of that form. And it's in a constant change of flux too. What you do, what I do, what other people do is constantly changing how those manifestations happen, right? So changing our destinies, right? And that's the power of astrology too, is knowing, what those energies are and having the ability to affect that, having the ability to be a co-creator in what's going on in your life. So hopefully, you're getting something like that out of the blog, and people who have contributed to, thank you so much, in any way that you've helped out. But okay, let's get into this. Monday today, Mercury. It's a Mercury week. There's not a lot going on this week, really, you guys. And one of the really cool things is we are out of the shadows of the three retrograde inner planet periods, finally completely free of the shackles and the tendrils of those three things. So really life should be moving forward now again, like really at full speed ahead. In fact, Mercury is moving so fast right now. It's like, it's really in the fast, it's in that left lane, it's like the Kentucky Derby winner yesterday or something. It's like Mercury's moving, like moving quick. And so sextile Jupiter is just a great energy to have coming right out of that shadow period, because this is all about, now that we know the energy is moving in a normal direction again, this is all about planning your future, right? Having a big picture, having an expanded viewpoint of what we want to do. So so this allows us to see the big picture well, and therefore we are excellent planners. We can plan really accordingly. And one of the big things about this is openness. Mercury and Jupiter together really open the mind up. It expands the mind. The mind is eager to learn more, eager to take in more. And one of the best things about that is it makes us more tolerant of one another and each other's viewpoints. And we can start to learn from each other's viewpoints some new things. And we don't react defensively with this. We're like, in fact, one of the best things to do with Mercury Jupiter sextile is to actually purposely expose yourself to new forms of information that come from places you normally wouldn't get them from. People, cultures, different countries, different, just ways of doing things, the ways that different people approach things. The more you can expose yourself to that, the more downloads you're going to get. And what that does is it expands our own philosophies and value systems. We add to them. We add to them. So this is a time that's really valuable for studying, therefore, too. Like, especially anything that we already have the primary knowledge base down, like, the primary education down, and we're working to become a specialist in a certain area. Now this is a time when study this can really be valuable, can really add to that subject matter that we're interested in. Now in particular, you know if you have any interest in religion or philosophy or law or courts, judicial stuff, medicine, different types of medicine, alternative medicine, anything like that is really, even more pointed on for the interest that Jupiter would have in bringing stuff to the intellect in Mercury and like giving it a wider viewpoint, more stuff. But basically, we feel satisfaction from learning in this energy. We get, we and what part of the thing too is because of the broader view of Jupiter and the acuteness of the mind of with the intellect with Mercury, we see patterns really well too. We see how things kind of fit together. And that's why we can be really good with our planning and organizing with this energy too. So one of the other great things from Mercury Jupiter is expanding your business. This is the time to do it. This is the opportunity to expand businesses, to, really have a good vision. So, like any kind of negotiations or agreements that you need to hammer out, it's a positive thing right now. Mercury is, like I said, a very acute mind. It's not going to miss things, and Jupiter's got the big plan. It's Jupiter is the business plan, right? So it's like a very clear-minded Mercury, and one of the things that's really cool too is with Jupiter being a social planet, we want to make an impact with this, with what we're thinking or learning or doing business with too, or and communicating to, always communicating. You can be the teacher with this energy, or the student, the eager student, or the one who's actually doing the teaching. And so that means, what with Jupiter involved, we it's a bigger viewpoint again. We want to impact society too with what we're doing. So great, great, great stuff there. And then on Tuesday we have another sextile. This one Venus sextile Pluto, and then Mercury is conjunct Chiron too. Now with the Venus Pluto, this really means it's an opportunity to deepen a significant relationship in your life. And it could be romantic. If it is romantic, it can be really profound because there's a lot of emotion, Venus mixed up in this, and it's very deep emotion. We're allowing it to come up from the depths, and it can have profound effects on both parties in a relationship. It can bring transformation literally to our psyche and the way we look at things. So we can get very, very deep if it's romantic, or even a friend. This can be like, your best friend and you just like making some really deep, profound connections with one another. And even if this doesn't play out through an individual, we may find some group that we have that has a profound effect on our consciousness, and vice versa. Like we can pour energy into all these relationships in a very dynamic way right now, and we can see how the waves of the energy that we put into things affects the different relationships that we're in, whether it's a one-on-one or a group. And we're trying to do it positively. We want, once again, this is something where we're trying, there's a deep, bigger connection to just being alone, and we want to see, when we see the power that we have and the effects that our energy can have on relationships and in groups, then we, really can get a handle on it and can work very, very precisely, incisively with it, and get look at the reactions to that energy and learn some great truths about ourselves and others. Great truths about the human condition, great truths about like relationship and how we can see each other in this. Now, if you are in the space of like developing a new relationship right now, and it romantic or not, this is an opportunity for that to be a very long-term, solid, transformative relationship, very reliable. Okay. And once again, just too, with this stuff too, with Venus, remember, is the ruler of creativity. So if we're getting a lot of this deep emotional stuff, And even if we're not connecting with relationship with this, we can have some amazing new experiences just with life itself that have a profound effect on us. And it can really juice up our creative energy, and we can really get into some transformative art too. Art is that it's really being driven from some really strong emotional content and wanting to come out and can have the power once again to affect the consciousness of others when it's exposed to them. Now, the other thing is, this is also a time to look, and I'm going to get into this a little bit more with Mercury going into Taurus, to look at your financial decisions really deeply right now, to do the research that's necessary, to not just like assume that you're making a big decision that or the correct decision with some big financial stuff, that you really want to delve very deeply into it and make sure that you have all the information you need. Now, also, Mercury conjunct Chiron. Remember, we have that Jupiter Chiron sextile going on this month. So when one gets hit by a planet, the other one is too, and very close together. And I think, once again, this is going to work really well with not only Jupiter um, sextile Mercury also, but the coming out of the shadow period, because it's a conjunction, which is always right a beginning point, a chance to begin. And this is really Mercury Chiron really helps with the Jupiter, because it's the really eager desire to learn more, to learn some very to learn very valuable knowledge, learning that can be medicine, right? Learning that can be medicine, that can turn, that can be alchemized into wisdom, basically, is what we're going on here. So like any of this information that Mercury Jupiter is bringing in, we now bring it down into Chiron, and we're really like integrating it deeply. And what's really nice about this is it can bring a healing effect to any agitations that we have in our mind. This stuff can widen our viewpoint and bring us some new information that can help some of the things that have been troublesome in our mind, especially over the last few weeks or few months when everything's been so intense. So like we can really feel like our mind is getting healed, kind of energy with this. And the other thing is, once that happens, and a lot of it with Jupiter too, that openness that Jupiter can bring in there, it helps us tap in to areas of our mind that we may normally not be accessing. And when we do that, then all of a sudden original thoughts start coming in. You can call them your own, or like maybe we've tapped into a channel that prior to that, like that port wasn't open, right? You port on your computer, and now you plug that in, and wow, like some new things are coming in, like, so it seems like, wow, where did I get these thoughts from? And it may be like, yeah, you're tapping in because you've opened up some more receptors up there with Jupiter helping you out, and the mind being so acute from Mercury. And it's like, okay, yeah, like those are some really new things coming in there. And it's really stimulating my intellectual mind, but it's coming from outside that. So it's very creative energy, therefore. And then Wednesday, I wanted to mention just this one thing on Wednesday, that the sun is semi square Venus. And the reason I mention this is because, from the Earth standpoint, Venus never gets very far from the sun. So the sun and Venus, from our standpoint, don't get in very difficult relationships or aspects with one another. But when it's semi square, that's the most difficult relationship that the sun and Venus can actually get from a geodetic position. That's us from Earth, geodetic, right? And so that's why I want to mention it. And this isn't a really difficult relationship aspect either, but it can show that there's some underlying tension in certain close relationships that you have, there's things not being said emotionally, like deeper things, things that can be a little bit disturbing to relationships, things that can be hard for people to bring up, and yet they are happening under the table. And so sometimes they come out in more superficial ways, in superficial relationships, as anger or sadness or some or criticism, where there's actually some deeper stuff not being thought out or brought out. I'm sorry. And so most of the time we can keep things really light when the sun is semi-square Venus, and we want to be with people we love. We want to be affectionate, but we keep the energy light. And a lot of times those are the very same people that there's this unsaid stuff going on that's not being brought out. And so really inside there may be some frustration, some disappointment, some dishearteningness from our loved ones because we're not really able to get to these depths with them right now where we feel comfortable enough to talk about some of the stuff that's really deep that's going on that's a little bit disturbing. So the other thing to be careful of with this is, like I said, we do like to have good times. We like to indulge. We like to do things like that. So, we can waste time. We can waste resources. We can waste money on things that we don't necessarily need. So, like, be careful with your finances again. Don't overspend money. The sun semi square Venus, to me, if you look on a bigger picture, that shows that the markets and the economy, in a general sense, they're not feeling sure about what's going on right now. Not really clear which way to go. Semi square is kind of stuck. It's a frustration. It doesn't really know what to quite do yet. And this can stimulate some creative energy again too. I would say that, this can actually play back into the Venus Pluto and feed creative energy ideas into the Venus Pluto, and then Venus Pluto will really want to do something with it, will want to produce something with it. And a lot of times with Sun Venus, that's about in our own immediate environment, making it more pleasant for us, however we would want to define that. So, but it's basically talking about seeking out good times, beauty, having fun, and sharing our love with those we pretty much already love. Now Saturday is the biggest thing going on this week. Mercury is finally going to go into Taurus after this very long extended time in Aries and Pisces area because of the retrograde. So now Mercury is moving fast now, you guys. Like it is like in the left lane of the freeway, it's on the broadband. And so Taurus will actually help, counterbalance some of that quick energy. But what I mean by that is it's full steam ahead with the Mercury stuff now. It will be in Taurus. It goes in on the 10th and will only be in Taurus for 17 days. By the 27th, it's going to move into Gemini, which is one of its favorite signs. Mercury in Taurus is not necessarily the most comfortable place for Mercury because, Mercury is, quick foot. It's quicksilver, it's moving fast all the time. That's its normal vibe. It's vibing quick. It's like a strobe light, but like Taurus forces it to slow down a bit. And so when Mercury is in Taurus, we before we make a decision, we are very very sure that we get very sure that we have all the information. We've thought through all the information. We've integrated all the information, and then we finally make our conclusion and move forward. So it can be slow in the decision making process. We may all find out that we want to slow ourselves down before we make any big decisions. We really want to think through things before we accept anything, especially anything new. And our main interest really is the practical when it comes to Taurus and Mercury. Really, it's really wanting to make sure that the decisions that we do make are going to manifest something that's very practical and useful for us. Now, Taurus is ruled by ruled by Venus, so it does inject some emotions into our thinking processes, but like they're like very they can come from a fixed place. So when Mercury's in Taurus, we're all a bit stubborn. We're all not we won't give up what we believe in very easily. It's not easy to convince us of something different. Now, Taurus, Mercury Taurus too is another one, Earth sign, another good connection between the mind, the hands, and tools, right? So like those three work really well together with Mercury's an Earth sign. So we can do that, we can do that. But like we really like, with Mercury and Taurus, I think a lot of this period because of the shaky economics, we're going to want to just use a lot of our time and focus in making sure our finances are stable, that the things that our loved ones need are stable. That's where we're going to think things through very thoroughly. So I don't, I don't think once again that we're going to need to be conservative with our finances, but we're going to be willing to kind of do that, and we're not going to make like any agreements with finances and stuff like that until we're really solid and sure that it's useful and beneficial for us. So like that's something where we can really focus that careful decision making, because Taurus is all about our assets and our resources and our money. So a really good place to use that over the next 2.5 weeks as we continue to watch how the economy reacts to all the changes going on right now, and how that trickles down, right? Trickles down, like to all of us individually, and how so we all need to be careful, because really a lot of the decisions that have been made in the last few months, we're not going to see the true effects of them until the next few months. So it's not a time yet to think we're out of the woods with stuff like that. In fact, we might not have reached the true nadir or bottom points of what the effects of these things will be until several months from now yet. All right, well, that's what I've got for this week. Now, next week, we do have our full moon coming, and it is, I think it's on Monday, isn't it? Yes, it is. It's Monday at 23 degrees Scorpio. So I'll be talking about that next week. And that looks like it's one of the most significant things. Oh, yeah, the sun's annual conjunction to Uranus is next week. So some quick changes may be coming up again, too. So yeah, and then that Jupiter Chiron sextile, which I talk about in the monthly a bit. I mean, that's going to be exact next week. But remember, that's really going on all month, which is really going to be helpful. So anyway, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. It is a free video blog on YouTube. You're going to become a follower now if you have a YouTube account. Don't forget to turn that on, and you are going to pass the link along. Remember, it's available on podcasts too. It's also available on Instagram. And on my website. And remember, if you need a reading, that is the best way you can support me. I'm a professional astrologer, professionally trained in giving readings for 7 years. I've been doing them for over 20 years. Do all kinds of readings. Check the website out. Birth charts, predictive for the next year, relationships, children's, elections, deeper soul, fixed star, all kinds of stuff, specific questions. So check out the website. The menu is there. I can work with you if you need to work on payments with the payments. And if you'd like to give a currency donation to the blog actually costs me money to put out. My Cash App is $Matthew Lawton, two T's in Matthew, Lauten, and Venmo at Matthew-Lawton. And no amount is too small. Thank you, folks. Some of you have been giving lately. I really appreciate it. Like I said, even $5 helps. And really what helps me the most is when you're ready for a reading or someone needs a reference. Please check it out. I've had tons and tons of customers that love the readings. Also, if you have a group and you need a class or a lecture or workshop, I'm available for them. I'm also looking for 2 more students right now. I've got 2 people who are very eager to get a live beginner class going, and I really need 2 more other people so that we can do that. I do have beginner classes available on podcasts if anyone wants to study individually, but I'd love to start doing a live one for you guys, because so much more can come out. It's so holistic. So, if I can get 4 people, it becomes very affordable for everybody, right? And it's worth my time then. So I really, if you're thinking about that, you want to be a little bit more serious about things, let me know. And like I said, email matthuey823 at gmail.com. There's also direct connections to me right on the website. So check that out too. Check the website out. Thank you all. Next week, that full moon in Scorpio, that's the Buddha full moon. So I'll see you all then.